for joining us this week. We're going to talk a little bit about one of America's great unsung heroes. One of the things that I really took away from this group project was Maggie Lena Walker was an amazing person that I personally didn't know anything about. And as we kind of got into her life, her upbringing, everything she did for everyone else, it's a really an inspiring story, and we're excited to tell you about her. So, Philip, I'm going to go ahead and next slide if you want to go ahead and
Yeah.
tell us a little
Yeah.
about Maggie.
Yeah, thank you. To really summarize, well, to summarize this whole her whole life into one slide is kind of a disservice, but here's just kind of like a brief overview of which like a few of her amazing accomplishments, one being leadership in the Independent Order of St. Luke. She was also the first African American president of a bank in America. She's also very famous for her entrepreneurship and her significant role in just being a leader in the African American community and helping women's rights, as well as encouraging just the improvement of education for Black Americans in America. And finally, she's also done a lot of work in social and civic engagement in taking many leadership positions in many of these organizations. For example, the NAACP and the Virginia State Federation of Colored Women's Clubs.
All right, so we're going to talk about how did she impact the field of management. Maggie Lena Walker was a super impactful person because she not only was doing all these things as a woman, but she was doing things at a time when America was largely uh, not including African Americans in really any part of civic life. So she had kind of the double whammy, and that's like something that I think really comes down to her courage and really how does she see through kind of the societal levers that aren't open to all people, and what could she do to change that? So this is a really cool quote here from Maggie in 1912. She said, let a woman choose her own vocation, just as a man does thus. Let her go into business. Let her make money. Let her become independent, if possible, of man." And that's a super powerful statement. I think we're talking about someone 115 years ago, and those words still ring true today.
This leads us into discussing the lasting impact of this person's work. In a time of segregation in the South, Maggie Lena Walker stands as an icon to this day to many African Americans and women of color who face persecution and societal restrictions. Her inspiration to them is to not let society define them, demean them, or control them. We also see her impact extend to inspiring those, no matter their circumstance or place in society, to invest in themselves both financially and socially, which we see with how she set up her bank and encouraged those around her to invest in savings accounts. She placed heavy emphasis on growing oneself through education, not just to help yourself, but your family, your culture, and most importantly, and as she did herself, your community. Her impact can still be felt today with many programs taking her name to continue her service. We see this with the Maggie L. Walker Summer Leadership Institute, where students can serve their community by working on service projects, ranging from ages 8th to 10th grade participants in a free 2-week leadership program.
All right, and when we look at Maggie's contribution to organizations today, one of the biggest things is mission oriented and fearless. Leadership today, we're constantly struggling with how do we get every person's experiences and diversity of thought embedded within an organization. These are the same problems that Maggie had to deal with, and she gives us a couple things to look forward to. One is an actionable path, right? She didn't just see a problem, complain about a problem. She actually brought people with her with actionable things like St. Luke's Penny Savings Bank, which at a time, African Americans didn't have access to credit, to banking. Imagine trying to get ahead in life without those two fundamental capitalist institutions. And then also there were these terrifying stories of what it meant to be African American, and they just weren't being heard with the mainstream media. So she actually created a St. Luke Herald newspaper, and they focused on all the terrible things that were happening, but really in a action path. Again, she said, all right, there's a problem here. One of the other problems is we're being suppressed, and now let's make our voice matter. And she, by creating this newspaper, allowed those things to happen. So if we succinctly wanted to say, what can an organization take away from Maggie's inspiration? Question the status quo. champion diverse thoughts and experiences, and really prioritize action. I think one of the things that you'll see, companies talk about diversity, they talk about what they want to do, and that talk gets kind of stale real quick. So be like Maggie, actually do the changes you talk about, and really live that leadership, just like Maggie would have.